Thursday, September 7th, and this is Geeknights. Tonight we discuss how to not suck at talking. Let's do this.
Today at work, I had the privilege of going to one of those places most people only see in the movies. I went to the Bronx Regional High School, which is one of those stereotypical inner-city high schools. And I worked at the clinic there on the computers and specifically the closet where the routers and switches go.
What's it like there? I mean, it can't be that bad if they have routers and switches.
Well, here's the thing. It looked exactly like in all those movies about troubled youths in the inner city. You know, the school was really locked down on the outside, bars everywhere. And there were guards at the doors, and everything was everything was really locked down. But every student I ran into, now it was during class, I was walking through the halls trying to find the clinic area. And aside from the fact that I walked past one student who was showing off her baby to a number of other students, a high school, mind you.
Yep.
But aside from that, all the punk kids I ran into were typical, bright-looking, normal punk kids, and all the teachers seemed to be teaching normal classes. And it seemed exactly like any other high school I'd been to, even to the fact that they seemed to have plenty of money. They had plenty of computers. Like all the textbooks I saw looked brand new, and everything looked really nice.
See, this is what I keep telling people, that, just because you grow up somewhere where you have inner city schools doesn't mean you can't learn anything. It's all about how much you try in school.
Well, see, the thing is, I don't know what they were actually teaching, and I saw a small wing of the school, and I'll note that there was another wing of the school that was locked from that side, like from the side I was in to the other side. I don't know if maybe all the troublemakers were in that side.
Yeah, those are the kids who shouldn't be in school in the first place because they don't want to be, and they're not going to learn anything no matter how good the school is.
See, here's the problem with that. I'd say most kids don't want to be in school when they're very young. I didn't want to be in school for much of my schooling.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of kids where, there are kids where if you expel them, they go, yay. And there are other kids who you expel them and they go, no, my life is ruined.
But what's the line? I mean, if you expelled me when I was in first grade, I would have thought that was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I would have spent the rest of my life playing and looking at pictures and books.
Hey, no, you wouldn't. You would have eventually become a homeless bum.
Yeah, and then I would have had the same books to look at because I couldn't buy new picture books. And I'd learn how to read the words night train and fortified wine.
MD 2020.
Anyway, real quick, before we get into the news and everything, I have a short geek back from our good friend and scientist, Lisa. I just want to say, I want you to know, or wait, I'm reading the wrong quote because I have a quote from my news article as well.
Oh, good job.
I think your bamboo problem was Bacillus pumilus.
Wait, basilisk, as in turns you to stone?
Bacillus, as in a little bacteria.
Oh, not a snake that turns you to...
Bacillus pumilus.
Oh, then maybe it's bacillus instead of basilis.
I've heard things like that said either way. I'm sure Pete and Lisa will correct both of us.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. But she is pretty certain that is it because it's a small bacteria found commonly in dirt, thrives in water, smells like vomit, and she is 100% confident that it smells like vomit.
That seems to fit the description perfectly. So
yes.
I'd bet money on it.
I will assume that the problem was in fact this tiny little bacteria.
Can we get some of this bacteria to use on people?
What do you mean use on people? It'd be easier just to vomit on people.
But it didn't smell. Vomit doesn't smell as bad as bacillus, whatever it is.
I could make you some vomit. We'll get a still. We'll make some concentrated vomit.
Oh no. Oh, no.
We'll get a bag of vomit and leave it in the washroom for a week or two.
Okay.
As long as the acid doesn't eat through the bag.
Ew.
Anyway.
Let's cut the disgusting news.
Let's get on to the news, because we have a pretty good topic today, I think.
All right, so we told you a while ago that some guy broke the fair use for WM thingy, which allows you to take the DRM off of fair play protected music files. So though that includes, music you buy from Napster and Yahoo and some other places that can be played on Microsoft's Windows Media Player, some other players, and any Plays for Sure device. So, of course, Microsoft put out a patch so that fair use for WM doesn't work anymore.
Now, I thought Microsoft only put out patches on Black Tuesday.
They usually do only put out patches on Black Tuesday, which is the second Tuesday of every month. That's the typical thing, is the second Tuesday of every month, Microsoft will put a whole mess of patches out. You go to Windows Update, you'll be all gay. All good. Okay, yeah, I guess my.
Okay.
So, I don't know why I said that, but
I'm really curious.
I don't know either. I guess
I just know that today I've listened to 2 radio people say a euphemism for homosexuality instead of their intended word.
It's a virus. It's going around.
Because Penn Jillette, I listened to one of his podcasts.
I know. I heard that too.
And he said the word fag, and then he stopped and he said, I didn't mean to say that word. I meant to say. And
Yep. Well, he must have been talking about a cigarette. He's British, you know.
Okay.
Anyway, the point is that Microsoft usually patches everything, including extremely dangerous security vulnerabilities in its software on the second Tuesday of every month.
So if a horrible vulnerability.
So if there's a virus going around the internet destroying everything.
And it comes out on that Wednesday, you've got to wait a whole month.
You got to wait a whole month before you're going to be able to defend against it, unless you have some sort of other company with an antivirus protecting you somehow. So someone broke the DRM on Windows Media files. And within 3 days, which is faster than Microsoft has ever released a patch ever, they put out a patch to fix these holes. Of course, it didn't work for long. Fair Use for WM version 1.2 basically makes the patch useless. And now there's going to be this very long firefight in which, Fair Use for WM upgrades and then Microsoft patches and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I have a feeling Fair Use for WM is going to win. I just had this feeling.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against that.
But the point is, you can tell who's really, controlling things at Microsoft, that they can dedicate resources to, making sure the record companies are happy that they can get a patch out in 3 days. Whereas when there's an extreme security vulnerability and a danger to the entire internet, it's okay. You can wait a month. It's no big deal because, that doesn't really hurt Microsoft's wallet so much. And, Microsoft bad. DRM bad.
Yeah. Anyway, my news today is something, it's been going around the internet for a while, and I kind of ignored it because there's news like this all the time, but for some reason, a lot of people have been talking about it. I mean, a lot of people. And then recently, I discovered, because I did a little bit of follow-up, and I saw the final consensus answer as to what was going on. And this just really illustrates what bothers me about, people who are credulous of things when they really shouldn't be. There was a tree in San Antonio that one day started spouting water from a small hole on the side of it in great quantity.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
interesting.
The people who own the property and the locals almost immediately began to believe that this was some sort of miracle water because one lady who was friends with the person who owned the property said that she sprinkled the water on her spider bites and they disappeared. And then another woman associated with the homeowner said that she soaked her ankles, which were arthritic, in water from the tree, and the arthritis went away.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and there are all sorts of claims like this. So people were coming around and bottling up the water and, oh, it's miracle water, keeping it, protecting it. She called the state a few times, hey, test this. I want to see what's up about that. Which you think, all right, maybe she's rational and she wants to, find out for sure what's going on. But I'll destroy that little tiny burst of optimism in a little bit. But first, they have all these interviews and she's saying, it's miracle water, miracle water. And then they talk to her son, who says, I don't believe any of that superstitious crap. And you think, all right, this kid's smart. But then he goes on to talk about how he thinks the water tastes better than the tap water. So he bottles it up and puts it in the fridge. So eventually, some people come and they investigate. And to make a long story short, they discovered, now despite the fact that everyone involved said there's no way it could be a burst pipe or anything, because that just couldn't happen. No. Sure enough, the tree, one of its roots, had penetrated an old water pipe, and the pressure had been forcing water through the tree, where it then manifested at this hole in the middle of the trunk.
Oh.
Now, the reason...
Who would have thought that there was a perfectly rational, reasonable explanation?
Now, the reason they discovered this, the best part
I don't know
is...
who would have thought that.
People tested the water. Not only was it tap water, but it was filled with a very high bacterial load, probably because it was filtered through water and then a tree, and that it was dangerous to drink.
Well, dirt and then a tree. I mean, the water was filtered through dirt.
But it was dangerous to drink.
Oh, good job. You smart people got what they deserved.
Now, the woman who said she wanted to get it tested and kept calling the state, come and test this, come and test this. You might think, well, she wants to find out what's going on because there's obviously a rational explanation. Here is exactly what she wanted the state of Texas to test for. Quote, I just wanted to know if it was a healing tree or miracle water.
Uh-huh. Yeah. There's a difference somehow?
I don't know. I can't believe that so many people were suckered in by this. And looking around the internet, there are a lot of people who are still talking about how amazing this is and how, yeah, you scientists, you can't solve this one. Yeah.
We just solved it in like a minute.
And like the article I'm linking to came out before they discovered that it was a pipe. And the article is really kind of slanted toward the view that we can't solve it. It's a magical mystery.
Just because you can't solve it doesn't mean we haven't solved it yet.
I guess I wish reporters would be far more incredulous when they talk to people, because it seems that whenever a reporter interviews one of these people who says that their statue of, I don't know, Liam Neeson is bleeding through the eyes and they want, it's a miracle. I don't know why I picked Liam Neeson.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, anyway. Fine, their statue of Princess Leia is bleeding through the eyes. We have a funny Princess Leia story, but that's neither here nor there.
No, it's not.
Actually, it's right over there.
Yeah, it's
Reporters always interview the person as though it's true, and they act as though everything that person says is true because they report it as though I'm just reporting what this person said. It is not my place to judge them. I really wish a reporter would ask the serious questions like, wouldn't it make sense that this just penetrated a pipe? What makes you think that there's anything other than a rational explanation?
Well, I think what it is, on the news, they pretty much have bad stories and good stories. A bad story is anything to do with national or international news at all. It's always negative. They get as negative as they possibly can when talking about anything out there. And whenever they talk about local news that's not crime, they focus on the most positive thing they possibly can. They make it as positive as possible. It's all the fluff pieces. So the reporters, doing the local stuff are never going to be negative about it because that's sort of like putting down your audience. It's like, the local stories, those are the people watching the news. You're going to go around, people are going to watch the local news and see the news make fun of their neighbor or their friend down the road. They're not going to like that. But they don't mind you making fun of, some guy in another country or some politician.
Well, it's not just the local news. Take the evolution debate. Even though it's not really a debate, it's just one group of people yelling and another group of people ignoring them. But anyway, it seems that the news always tries to appear fair and objective and balanced. So they always give equal weight to every argument, which is crazy. I mean, say Scott, Alex, and I are arguing over whether or not the thing I'm holding in my hand is a DVD-R. We look at it, and all three of us agree it says DVD-R on it. It's obviously a DVD-R. And then some hobo who escaped from the insane asylum up the road breaks in through the window and says, that's not a DVD-R, that's a squirrel.
Well,
you don't need to even acknowledge the fact that the hobo said it was a squirrel. And if you do, you make sure to mention that this is a crazy hobo and not a DVD-R expert.
Well, what you got to understand, the news doesn't care about giving the news properly. They care about ratings.
So yeah, I know.
If there's one opinion,
I understand why it happens.
If there's a popular opinion, even if it's completely wrong, they'll be one-sided to the popular opinion. And if there's an opinion that people debate on, they'll try to be sort of fair so that no one gets mad at them.
Yeah.
And if there's an opinion that, everyone believes the right thing, then they'll report the right thing. That's
unless they
what
report
they
the wrong thing just to generate controversy so people watch to see what they're talking about.
Yeah. Generally, what you do is don't watch the fucking shit mainstream news. God damn, is it worthless.
Yeah, go to the bloggers and places like Geeknights instead, because we have the real news.
No, the idea is to read as much information on the internet as you possibly can and sort it out for yourself, which doesn't work if you're an idiot. So step one, don't be an idiot.
We should do a How to Not Suck at Not Being an Idiot show someday.
Next Thursday, how to get the news truthfully as possible.
Things of the day. I didn't give nearly as many hints as I probably could have as to my thing of the day.
One thing of the day.
2 things of the day. And 3 things of the day. Well, just 2.
Just 2.
Nobody expects the 3rd thing of the day.
Because there isn't one. That's why.
Or fanatical devotion to the Pope. Anyway. Now, there were a lot of guesses to what my thing of the day is. And I'm surprised no one guessed Lemon Party. Because naked men really Lemon Party is what most people would think of.
You should have
first.
just said it was Lemon Party and let them go see what Lemon Party is.
Don't go see what Lemon Party is, though it's probably the tamest of those things on the internet. Now, but the point is, I gave a few hints. There were a lot of guesses, and pretty much everyone in the front row crew knew immediately what I was talking about, but no one else did. And I don't think many people know about this. And it's one of those things I really hope makes an internet resurgence, because I find it to be one of the most philosophically inspiring videos I've seen on the internet in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, we saw this how many years ago? At least 2 or 3.
Yeah.
It's pretty old. Maybe 2004, 2003, perhaps.
And it spread like a virus. Everyone who saw it showed it to everyone they could, and everyone who saw it then tried to spread it to more people.
It's the kind of thing you would expect, you know, like, because there's a lot of old stuff that I saw a year or 2 ago has shown up on Dig and gotten really popular among all the people who haven't seen it yet. So I figure this one's going to come back, but it hasn't yet, so maybe we can help it.
Now, I'd suggest, if you're at a computer, that you stop listening right now and watch my thing of the day. It is called A Heap of Trouble.
Yep.
It's a short video. Now, I'll assume at this point that you've all watched it.
Well, it's not safe for work, by the way.
Oh, yeah, there are naked men.
Lots of them.
Now, it is tastefully done. It is no worse than what you would expect from, I don't know, a bunch of naked men walking down this road.
Causing a heap of trouble.
For all concerned.
Yeah.
But it's a short
video. It's not
video.
like erotic. It's just naked guys. Like a nude beach and not like a penthouse.
But the video begins with typical suburban, scary, black hole sun types kind of standing around. You know, kids like playing in the street, and a girl eating ice cream. There's an ice cream man. And all of the parents, all of the adults are standing around, and you can't really hear what they're saying, but it's definitely a rabble, 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 rabble kind of thing, you know. Oh, how dare those blah, 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 blah. I'm all indignant because I live in the suburbs.
Exactly.
And then everything stops because something is coming in the distance. And everyone starts getting really nervous and looking ahead.
2 naked men, 3 naked men,
and 4 naked men, and 5 naked men.
And eventually 9
naked men just walking down the road. Cause a heap of trouble
all right.
for all.
We're not gonna
The lyrics are, 9 naked men just walking down the road will cause a heap of trouble for all concerned. Yes, 9 naked men. And it just repeats over and over again.
Occasionally they do the countdown, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they just go back into the chorus.
And sure enough, over the horizon and around the corner come 9 naked men marching in a line singing this song. And
nine naked men of a range of ages, and body types.
Now,
not pleasant to behold.
This does not go over well with the simple townsfolk. They start in various ways freaking out. A bunch of little kids leg it, and they run, and the mother freaks out and starts grabbing the kids and trying to drag them inside.
Now,
and the ice cream man is like, oh shit, and he's hiding in his thing. But then one of the men, the father, the dad of the primary family in the video, he doesn't run away. He stands there staring at them, and he has this inspired look on his face, and he slowly puts his daughter down. And it cuts to everyone else running around and panicking, and then it keeps cutting back to him, and he's staring wantonly and slowly unbuttoning his shirt. At which point his wife and children see him, and they physically drag him into the house. While they're dragging him in, you hear him saying "Not naked down the road," like he's trying to sing it, and it's trying to get out of him. And they drag him into the house, and it keeps cutting to everyone panicking, and then it cuts to the naked men, and they start marching by singing their song.
And they're still wearing socks and shoes, which is way cool.
Now, like the little girl who has the ice cream drops it and starts crying, but everyone's gone, and they're marching, and the ice cream man is in his ice cream truck.
And he starts to take off his tie.
But
then he puts it back on, oh, shit.
Like he sees himself taking off the tie, and he freaks out, what am I doing? And then they're getting closer, and he's trying to hide, and he's covering his ears. He tries to climb into the freezer, and then they start doing the countdown. 1 naked man and 2 naked men. And then it gets to 9 naked men, and meanwhile, a new naked man is running forth. And then he sings 10 naked men, and he has joined them and is marching off toward awesome.
Yep. Go ice cream man.
So then it cuts back to the people inside, and the father is stripping himself completely naked and desperately trying to get outside, and the family is physically restraining him and yelling and screaming.
And then finally, he loses it, and he's like, oh, it happened again, and he's crying all over
the
the
naked
place.
men leave, and they're gone, and as their song fades away, it cuts back to the father, And he's like, did it happen again? And his family's like, yes, dear. And he's like, oh, God, oh, no. And then the credits roll.
Yep. Well, the credits are before that, actually.
Oh, yeah, but it fades to black. How's that? It fades to black.
Now, this video is just as odd. Remember that I had a thing of the day where some dad beat up some punk kid skateboarding? This is the opposite of that, because it shows what society should be.
I mean, first of all, there are so many, this is like Utena. There are so many ways to interpret it. Now, first off,
I think we're definitely reading more into it than the creator did, but that's okay.
I don't know. I wonder. I'd like to talk to the people who made it. But anyway, first off, if you take it at face value, it is 9 naked men marching down the road, causing a heap of trouble for all concerned.
Which is awesome.
It's absolutely hilarious. The comedic timing is impeccable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look at it from one metaphorical perspective, those men represent that libertine freedom that is so lacking in American society.
They are the awesome.
These are men who have decided that, fuck all with convention and all of your, rabble crap. I am naked, I'm proud, I'm marching down the street, and it is my right to do so. I beg all of you to join us in our revelry and our libertine wanton fun. And
it also shows you that all, the men in society, I guess, but, the people of the world want to join them secretly. But because, they have this bullshit suburban life, they're withheld and they're concealed and they're holding in their inhibitions.
I mean, the ice cream man clearly wants to join them, but he's so repulsed by the idea of joining them that he becomes very conflicted. And the only time he becomes happy is when he realizes that that's what he really wants. So he goes and does it. Meanwhile, the father who, think of this like a fundamentalist group that is against homosexuals. Many times the rationale is that homosexuality is something that can easily get you. They can convert you. They can make you be that way. And it seems to me that the only people who would think that are people who are homosexual and do want to be that way and think that everyone else feels that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's, a seductive thing. And it's the same thing. The father, he obviously really wants to do it, and his family forces him not to, and he ends up being one of them self-hating.
Yeah, he's like, oh, they almost got me. It's so sad. Oh, my God.
Meanwhile, the only time in the whole video he actually looks inspired is when he wants to join them.
Yeah, the rest of the time he's either crying or he's just kind of bored and useless.
Also, the fact that society will use peer pressure, as in, everyone's saying, oh, this is horrible, run away, but it will also use coercion, if it can, to oppress you, meaning they physically prevented him from joining the naked men.
Yep. Let it just be said that, Rim and Scott are on the side of the naked men, and if there were naked men marching down the road, they would be +2, most likely.
Except that they would probably then become registered sex offenders.
Oh.
Now, of course, the third way to look at this that I just remembered that we were going to talk about, and we kind of skip, is that these people are doing something. Not really, but, if these were real people doing something really and not for a film, they're doing it. Something that we like to call freaking squares.
Yes, you might remember the Simpsons episode. I believe it was the one with the tobacco.
No, it was a completely different episode.
That was the one with Ben and Jerry.
Yes.
And, because that also involved a farm. That's why I got it mixed up.
Homer and the hippies decide to go freak some squares, meaning go out, find people who are living their mundane life, and do something that they can't just automatically react to. Kind of like what those living theater people who do like invade a Best Buy or be slow motion for 10 minutes in a Home Depot do.
Yep.
Where you suddenly do something that people just can't deal with, or it's something that people can't just rationalize automatically, and they have to stop and think. And your hope is that when they stop and think, they might realize that they're kind of living their life like an automaton.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do it occasionally at work, like little things. Like if I'm standing in an elevator and everyone's facing the door, I just kind of turn around and face all the people. And it's amazing how absolutely uncomfortable everyone else in that elevator gets immediately.
Yeah, that's always a fun one.
Or I'll just make eye contact with someone and not break it, and they don't know what to do. like really, people just don't know what to do. If I'm walking down the street and I'm like I'm working in a lab somewhere, and I just look up at someone and make eye contact and don't say anything, they immediately look away like, oh, he saw me.
Oh no, I'm not invisible anymore. What do I do? Oh, he has true sight. Oh, I'm so screwed. Wait, I can make a visual joke.
Oh?
Yeah.
Scott made an incredibly hilarious joke that there was no way I can possibly impart over the air.
Haha, it is so inside. It's inside our house still. Oh my god.
Yes, I made another inside joke that no one can see.
Oh no.
If anyone remembers this episode, the next time they see us in person, ask us about the inside jokes and see if we remember.
Okay.
Anyway,
I have a thing of the day.
Why bother? My thing of the day was so unbeatable.
It's an okay thing of the day, man.
Is it?
Yeah, so there's a prison, and a guy breaks out. I don't know how he broke out, but he did. And I guess he either did it by awesome skills or by stupidity of the guards. And hopefully it was awesome skills. I'm guessing it's awesome skills because of what he does in the video. You see, this guy's broken out of prison, running down some train tracks.
Now, meanwhile, all the police know that a man who looks like this gentleman has just broken out of prison in this area.
So, of course, running down the train tracks, who does he come across but a police officer? Now, of course, he doesn't just get up and run because, well, the cop would get in his car, run, chase after him in the car, hit him with the car, get out, cuff him, and put him in the back of the car.
Also, probably call for the helicopter and the guards and say,
and the dogs and
the dogs and the bees and the dogs that shoot bees out of their mouths.
And the other cop that's a little while down the tracks, and yeah. So he stops and talks to the police officer. He's got like a Powerade or a Gatorade or something, and you know he's not wearing prison garb. I think he changed his clothes and whatever. And the cop is like, man, this guy fits the description. So he keeps radioing, for help. But the cop's picture of the guy isn't the highest quality, so he's not 100% sure. And the cop really questions the guy out, and the guy isn't the brightest guy. Like, it's possible to have been much more smooth, but his level of smoothness is sufficient to outwit this police officer. And the cop just lets him go, even with his incredibly shitty alibi.
Now, Scott and I view this slightly differently. I say that while I don't know what the man did, so I'll assume that he murders babies.
Yeah, I have no idea what the guy did. He didn't seem like that evil a guy. He seemed like a normal kind of... So he probably wasn't a killer.
Yeah, let's assume he was a baby murderer, just for the sake of argument. That way we're arguing the most extreme case. That way, no matter what, it's less bad than we think.
Okay.
So, the cop let him go. I would rather the cop let the baby murderer escape his custody than have arrested someone who just happened to be walking down those train tracks.
I gotta agree with that, but I do have to say, if you watch the video, all I'm saying is the cop does a real shitty job of checking to see if this is the guy. I mean, the odds of someone coming along who meets the description so well, and then you accepting the shittiest crap alibi, like, yeah, I'm in a hotel, I don't even know where the hotel is, my brother... dropped me off some miles down the track so I could go jogging to the hotel, and, yeah.
But then again...
I don't even know the names of the towns around here.
The guy's story follows the pattern of... See, I'm going to give you guys a little hint today, because it really goes into what our main bit is, but if you want to lie to someone like a police officer or an authority figure, one of the biggest keys you can do is to have a somewhat strange story. Don't ever say something generic like, I'm just out for a walk, or...
Well, I think this guy says his name is like, George Rogers or something so generic.
Oh, no.
Robert Jones. Robert Jones is what he says his name is.
When I was caught by the police as a child doing things I shouldn't have been doing, I always gave my name as like Steve something. I just always used the name Steve. But anyway... If you need to lie to a police officer about something... Now, of course, I'm not advocating, legally, that you lie to a police officer who is doing his pursuant duties in a way that would get you in trouble. However, that is simply the thing that I must say...
Isn't there not actually a law that says you can't... There's no law that says you're not allowed to lie to a police officer.
No,
There's
not
just
really.
a law that says anything you can or say will be held against you if you're arrested.
Yeah, you can lie to police officers all you want.
Yeah, if a police officer comes up and asks you and says, do you know how fast you were going? And you can say, I have no idea. Or you can say, I was going 2 miles an hour, officer.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want. You can say Monkey Purple Thursday.
Unless he happens unless he happens to have a judge with him and they put you under oath right away.
Yeah, then you can't lie. But there's no
or if he's Judge Dredd.
Yes, if it's Judge Dredd.
Don't lie to Judge Dredd.
Or if it's a lensman, because a lensman will know. And he'll just get the truth out of your brain.
But the point is...
Oh, and Wonder Woman.
Make your story a little bit off, but not make it a little weird. But don't give too many details, but give at least one strange detail.
Yeah, this guy goes beyond one strange detail into basically, he's obviously making it up on the fly. Like, if you showed me this video without telling me it was the guy who was escaping from prison, I would have figured it out in about 5 seconds. I've been like, oh, that's the guy because he's just making up shit.
Yeah, probably.
And he doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know anything.
But just remember, you have to make up. I'd say a good baseline if you're panicking is make up 3 details as to what you were doing, and don't give any more details. Because if you give more than 3 or 4 details when a cop asks you, that's a sign of nervousness. And the moment you're showing that kind of nervousness, the cop is going to suspect
The thing is,
you.
the guy was acting kind of nervous, and the cop did kind of suspect
Oh
him.
no! The cop didn't obviously know what I'm telling everyone. You can get away with lying to people who are dumb.
The guy had no idea.
I'm telling you how to lie to people who are somewhat smarter than this cop.
Yeah.
Give 3 pertinent details. Make sure at least one of them is somewhat strange, and make sure your story is not just run of the mill. But don't make it like, don't say a bear killed me, and now I'm on these train tracks.
Yeah. The point of this video is look at the stupid cop. Ha 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 ha.
Anyway. Our topic today is how to not suck at talking.
Wow, that's kind of generic.
Well, the thing is, we originally were going to do a show on how to do a good panel, and we realized that doing a good panel is one specific topic, but public speaking in general and the presentation of, your voice and your speech and your person really could do to be an entirely separate show, because a panel discussion would also have to talk a lot about the content, which I don't want to bother with today.
Yeah, I guess. It depends what kind of panel you're doing, but anyway. Public speaking.
Yes, public speaking is something that the majority of Americans cannot do well and are afraid of. In fact, and there are many studies that show that more Americans are afraid of public speaking than they are of dying.
Now, here is my first piece of advice to anyone who is nervous at all. If you have any amount of nervousness in your body when you get up to talk to more than one person, like you're standing on a stage or anything on a podium, what the hell are you afraid of? What the fuck's wrong with you? I mean, what do you think? They're going to throw tomatoes at you? Or they're all going to boo you and you're going to have to run away? Your
music's bad and you should fail bad.
Yeah, it's like, even if you're absolutely terrible, you give the worst presentation imaginable of whatever you're doing, and everyone in the audience hates you, and they think you're the worst person ever, they treat you like a baby raper, what's the worst they can do? You're not going to go to jail. You're not going to get killed. You're not going to be anally raped. Nothing bad is going to happen.
Now, granted, that sounds like very easy to follow advice that for many people is actually very, very difficult to follow.
Yeah, I can't understand it because I never had the problem. But,
yeah, whatever. Anyway, I at least understand that it's not just because someone's afraid of something and you tell them that it's not something to be afraid of, that doesn't make it any easier.
Oh, I didn't say it does make it easier. I'm just saying I don't understand where the fear comes from because I don't have it.
Most people, Scott, who are actually human beings and not some kind of masturbation bot.
I know that they are afraid. I just don't know why.
Most humans have an innate fear of being embarrassed, of being discredited, of being ridiculed. Many people have low self-esteem.
Well, don't have those things.
Many people are speaking for a grade where something bad can happen to you.
A grade is not important.
It can be.
Not really, no.
Yeah, it can be. If I had a GPA of less than 3.4, IBM, by their policy, would not have even looked at my resume.
Yeah, that's not such a big deal.
It is.
In terms of your greater life picture.
You know what? It kind of is, because working for IBM is pretty much what made me the badass that I am today in terms of being able to get a job wherever I want. Working for IBM has greatly affected my life as much as many other of the greatly pivotal events in my life.
Yeah, but it's not like if you didn't work for IBM, you would have worked somewhere shitty and had a crap life.
Also, if I had not had a 3.4 GPA, I would have lost all of my scholarships. Thus, I could not have afforded to go to RIT. Thus, I would have had to immediately drop out.
You would have still made it somehow.
No, I probably wouldn't have. I couldn't have generated that much money, and I certainly couldn't have gotten the loans.
You would have gone somewhere else, done something else.
Yes, my life would have been completely different.
But it would have been bad.
Scott, the point is that a grade can affect your life. Or, for example, say you're giving us a big presentation to a client for a company. If you botch the presentation and the client doesn't buy, and it's a big account, there's a good chance you might just be fired straight up.
That is possible, yes.
So, yes, don't say that there can't be consequences, because there can be.
Oh, I guess, but I've never had to give a speech or a presentation with severe consequences, which I guess is the best kind to give, because if you suck at public speaking, don't go giving speeches with consequences. Do the non-consequence ones first to build the skills.
Well, the thing is, honestly, I have a lot more experience with this, partly because I was on the e-board of the anime club, so every week for much of my college existence, I had to get up in front of a few hundred people, or a couple hundred people, and, generally keep their attention, not get laughed at, talk about things. I also, for the classes I took at RIT, and I don't know how other colleges do it, and I'm starting to suspect that not many places actually force people to do this much anymore. But at RIT, pretty much any class you took, you generally had to give at least one somewhat significant presentation to the class.
Oh, yeah. In some of my classes, I had to give presentations weekly.
Yes.
Like for computer classes, I'd have to get up and talk about the project I was working on every week and give status reports and all sorts of things.
One seminar I took on political speech giving and political communication, not only did we have to present something every class, but every week, for every other week, a student was responsible for teaching to the entire class an entire lesson.
I love that because I love teaching the class, and because I think I do a better job than some teachers, and B, that teacher's awesome and lazy, so they get points.
Yes. That was one of my favorite classes ever.
Yeah.
Even though it was 12 people, and we were all pretty smart, and the teacher knows a lot about political science. He was convinced, absolutely convinced, that John Kerry was not going to get the Democratic nomination.
It shows you how much of a science political science is.
Anyway, now, in addition, I actually took every communications class that RIT had to offer because I had free time in my schedule, and I really liked that major, but I realized I could never get a job with that major.
That's for sure.
So I took a concentration in it, and I used that as an excuse to be able to sign up for all the classes that I normally couldn't sign up for. And what I did is I never filled out the paperwork to complete the concentration. Thus, I was always in it, and I could keep taking the classes long after I'd fulfilled the requirements.
Good move.
Which was a big deal at RIT because those classes filled up almost immediately. And if you didn't get in early in the crazy registration system they have, you could never take these classes.
Yeah, I remember when I went to the liberal arts department, they were like, you took too many liberal arts classes. I'm like, that's fine. Just fill all these other slots with them. I don't care.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I also took a class specifically on public speaking and speech giving.
Ooh, I took the best speech public presentation class that I ever had was actually in my senior year of high school because there was this really good teacher, and basically what he did is the whole class was come up with a speech and give it to the class and do it over and over and over and over and over. And by the end of that class, pretty much everyone was awesome. Like, I even had a friend in that class who was just so nervous to go and talk in front of even like two people. And he would get up in front of the class and start giving these great speeches. And halfway through, he'd just be like, I can't go on. And then he'd sit down, even though he was giving this great speech and no one thought bad of it. That's how good the teacher was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Anyway, that's what I learned.
Actually, I remember because I'll say that I used to, when I was very young, despite how, loud I tend to be nowadays, when I was very young, I was actually very nervous about speaking in public or speaking in front of a crowd.
So I guess in first grade, they made me the narrator for the Little Pigs play.
Oh, I always hated that, but for completely different reasons.
And because I was loud, and I was the only person who could speak loudly and clearly. And read quickly.
Yeah, that's what bothered me the most about school, was when I was very early schools, that whenever the class would read something as a whole, I would read the whole thing in like 10 minutes, while the class took an hour because apparently everyone else in the room couldn't read at all, and they couldn't actually say what they were
that's for sure.
supposed to say.
Yeah.
It bothered me, and I'd always get in trouble because the teacher would call on me like,
I
Brandon, you got to read something. I'd be like, what? I was asleep.
Yeah.
I was done. I already read it.
I always seem to get stuck with the narrating job. I remember middle school with Odyssey of the Mind. I got stuck with being the narrator with, my loud and concise speaking.
But
at least when I'm reading something, when I'm coming up with stuff in my head, it's not so good.
In 7th grade, suddenly our English teacher decided that we had to learn how to speak in public. And what she did is she had everyone write down a topic. Well, she didn't say what was going on. She just said, write down a topic you're interested in. So we all wrote something down. Of course, I was the nerd who asked the question, can it be anything? And she said, yes, it can be anything. However...
What did you write down?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
So then...
I like how this is now Geek Fables of public speaking instead of How to Not Suck.
Yeah, we'll give a bunch of advice real quick at the end. Anyway. So then she puts them all in a hat and she says, all right, starting now, in alphabetical order, everyone is going to draw something from this hat and give a 2-minute speech on it to the whole class. And the whole room goes, oh, shits!
But what if it was something you didn't know? Like someone else wrote down like car racing. You didn't know shit about car racing.
Exactly. It was a test of extemporaneous speaking skill.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That would be good for college people.
So the first person goes up and they get something. I don't remember. Whatever. The second person goes up. They pull something out of the hat. They look straight at me. They say, Brandon, I hate you. And then they say, I don't know anything about Norse mythology. Anyway.
Awesome.
I remember that mine was flowers, and I was really nervous, and I got up, and I start babbling. I'm just like, flowers, blah, flowers, blah.
Like a gibbering mouther?
Yeah. I said the word for flower in German because someone had said that to me not 2 days earlier. And I finished, and I realized right then and there that the class reacted to me the exact same way that they'd reacted to the people who'd gone before me. And then as I watched, to the same way to everyone that went after. And with one exception of someone who gave a really funny speech, no one was treated any differently by the audience at all. And in fact, no one cared one shit.
Except for Nerdy McFinkster, who got picked on.
Actually, no one cared. Like, no one in the audience cared.
Oh, maybe Nerdy McFinkster was in the class across the hall.
No one in the audience cared at all how good anyone's speech was. And after the class was over and it ended, I realized then that I can just give a speech and it doesn't matter because no one cares.
Yeah, pretty much.
So then we had to actually give speeches in class. Like, we had to prepare 2 speeches. An informative one, and I forget the details.
And a persuasive one?
Something like that. It doesn't really matter.
No.
I did my one that effectively was persuasive on Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, I'm very proud of my other speech. My informative one, I did a spoof of John Cleese's How to Irritate People.
Oh, yeah.
And I talked for an hour for 45 minutes about how to irritate people, and it was hilarious. So I guess the first bit of advice to actually tie this into the advice is remember that no matter how afraid you are, in most cases, like Scott was saying until I completely disagreed with him, but it is true in many cases, the audience doesn't give a shit.
No, I mean, most likely they're just going to go to sleep and they don't care. I mean, depending on where it is. I mean, if it's a panel at an anime con, they want to be entertained and informed.
Well, yeah,
but if it's like a business thing, you want to convince someone. But most of the time, in all the situations I can think of, it's people are there because they have to be, or something like that.
Let me put it this way. If you don't like public speaking, you probably avoid it. As a result, if you are in a situation where you are public speaking, meaning it is mandatory, you did not elect to do it, you've been chosen to do it by some force you have no control over, odds are the people who have to listen to you don't care any more than you do and aren't any more interested than you are.
Mm-hmm. And also, though, if you are forced into a mandatory situation where there might be consequences, if you've been avoiding it all this long time, you're out of practice and you're going to screw it up. So if there are ever opportunities to speak in public with no consequences, just take them because no one will care.
Now,
you will improve your skills at something which is not easy to improve your skills at.
I can at this time give a nod to, there are a lot of organizations out there for people who are afraid of public speaking.
Are there really?
The most prominent one is the Toastmasters.
Oh, do they just give toasts? You just go there and keep toasting?
See, I thought it would be cool, and I joined at IBM, and then I realized it was kind of lame, because for me at least. But for a lot of people, it really helps them. The Toastmasters are clubs. They have annual dues, but they're trivial. It's some piddly amount of money.
Like $1?
It's like 60 or something bucks, but it's not much.
No, it's not
and you can go to their meetings for free, pretty much.
Oh, okay.
And all they do is they give speeches to each other and then critique each other.
Oh.
Usually every group or chapter has 1 or 2 experienced speakers and then a bunch of people who want to get better. And it's usually a very good thing. I personally found it very cheesy and boring, but after I did one speech at IBM, the guy said, "Why are you even here? You want to run this?"
Yeah,
and I never went back.
See, I would go to it not to improve my speaking skills, but I would go to, give many persuasive speeches to the group of people there. To convince them of things that they were...
Here's why the Toastmasters suck.
Here's why the Toastmasters suck. Here's why God doesn't exist. Here's why Linux is the best. Yeah.
So anyway, the fear thing we can't really cover anymore. Other than the best way to get over your fear is to realize no one cares and to do public speaking whenever you can.
Yeah, there are other things you can do about it that a lot of people suggest, like look at one person in the audience and just concentrate on them, or, imagine a chicken dancing in the back of the room, or get your friend to wear a chicken suit and dance in the back of the room, and all that kind of BS. But that's just, ways of getting around the problem without pulling it out by the roots.
Yes, actually, I remember the advice that I gave to a friend in high school that was stupid and hilarious, and I wish there was a funny follow-up story, but there isn't, though. Pretend there is one. Pretend I told a funny story that happened as a result of this, because none actually happened. I'm not going to make something up. But I had a friend in high school who was very afraid of public speaking, and he was a guy, and my advice was, think about naked women.
Oh my
that
God,
you like.
because I knew a guy who said he did this, but I didn't believe him. Is that when he was going to give a speech, he would bring up his speech notes and a Playboy centerfold, and he would put it one next to the other to give the speech, and he'd do okay.
Now, I told him, just think about that stuff, and it'll take your mind off of how afraid you are. Now, my intention was that he would have a giant erection during his speech in class, which didn't happen.
Yep.
But
Damn.
you know what? Yeah, it happened. He had a giant erection in class, and everyone laughed at him.
Good thing he wasn't a naked man walking down the road.
And then he died of cancer.
Oh.
Now, in terms of actually being good at public speaking, or in terms of speaking to a group of people, no matter how large it is there are a bunch of very simple tricks. One, make eye contact with the audience. But if you are uncomfortable doing so, and actually if you have the trouble I have where if I make eye contact with someone, it tends to either unnerve them when I'm giving a speech, or I lock onto them, and then it's obvious that I'm staring at someone.
Yeah. The idea is...
Look at everyone's foreheads and kind of look through everyone with a 1,000-mile stare, because then every single person in the audience thinks that you're making eye contact with them, when in fact you're not making eye contact with anyone.
You gotta be like the Abe Lincoln statue in the Lincoln Memorial. He's not looking at anyone. He's just got these eyes that are kind of going out over the whole area there. But if you look at the statue, it looks like it's looking at you.
So that's the first... See, we're going to give very specific advice as opposed to the generic, blah, 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 blah. No.
Yeah. You got to have your eyes not looking down, not looking up at the ceiling. You got to have them looking straight out, but not, if you're on a stage or if you're elevated at all. I mean, if the people are sitting and you're standing, your head is above them. So if in order to look people in the face and in the eyes, your head is going to have to be pointed down a little bit, or your eyes are going to have to be pointed down. If you keep your head straight and your eyes straight forward, you won't be looking at anybody. You'll probably be looking at like the back of the room or the chairs in the back or people's hair. But everyone will think you're looking at them, which is important.
That was the effectively beginner's advice.
Yes.
The advanced advice is that you really don't want to ever make eye contact with anyone in the room.
Not at all.
However, what you do want to do is, it depends on what kind of speech you're giving, but my general advice, if you want to appear confident and strong, and you were trying to persuade the audience of something, the best mode your head can be in is you want to be looking downward slightly. Your head should be angled down just a little bit, like you're looking at the ground. But your eyes should be angled up. So you're kind of looking at everyone through slightly lowered gaze. So you're looking up, like past your eyebrows at everyone. Now, don't do it obviously. This has to be subtle. But that sort of body posture puts forth an incredibly strong, almost predatory look that will keep the audience's attention very well.
Mm.
Now, that is not so useful in front of very, very large crowds, but it is incredibly useful if you were talking to a small group of people.
Yeah.
And even if you were talking one-on-one, using that kind of body language and then increasing it slightly just as you make your important point will very easily bowl over people who aren't ready for it or who are easily persuaded, regardless of what you're saying.
That also reminds me, if there's a camera of some sort, like let's say you're on TV and there's a video camera, there's usually like a light or a thing that you're supposed to look at that, you know how Jon Stewart's always looking right into the camera? That's what you got to do. You got to find where the thing you're supposed to look at is and look right into it. Or else, the camera's going to look at like the side of your head, and that's not good.
Though you still, in a camera situation, you still want to basically pan your head from left to right and back and forth very slowly and somewhat erratically while you talk. So it looks like you're engaging a large crowd.
Yeah, you don't want to look like a statue. You want to look like,
well, more importantly,
active living thing.
If you were trying to impress people or do a good speech, if you're looking straight at the camera, it doesn't matter to the people in the audience so much, but to the people watching on TV, it looks as though you are only speaking to the camera and that you have no audience at all. If you're looking to the sides a lot, the audience subconsciously at home will get the impression that there's an incredibly large crowd there. It's just kind of a subconscious thing that you can use to your advantage, especially to make it look like you're giving a much more important speech than you really are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of voice, you have got to be loud or have a microphone. There are no bones about that. There's no way around that.
Preferably be loud with a microphone.
If you are a quiet person and you have a quiet voice, or if your voice is damaged, or if there's some reason you can't talk loudly, you must get a microphone.
Yep.
I'm not going to talk about microphone etiquette and microphone technique because that would be an entire other episode.
Yeah.
Suffice to say, if you're holding the microphone, don't fiddle with it. Don't hold it in front of your face. Hold it down. Scott, who holds it in front of his face.
That's where I'm holding it now.
And be consistent with it. However you decide to hold it, right or wrong, don't change that unless someone who is directing you tells you to.
Yeah. But what it all comes down to is that if no one can hear what you're saying, it doesn't matter what you say. Nothing else matters because no one can hear you. And that's bad.
Now, in order to give a good speech or to talk to people in an engaging way, the best way to do it is to speak extemporaneously. Meaning, don't have notes, don't have a prepared speech, just talk. Say whatever you think you should say, which is incredibly difficult if you haven't done it before.
Well, I mean, we're doing it on this show. We don't have any prepared anything. We just talk the way we would talk in public to our friends or to anyone on the street.
See, the thing is, people have a lot of trouble doing that to a crowd. And more importantly, usually you are speaking about something that isn't colloquial. I mean, if I was giving a speech, and act like I was political speech or something, I probably wouldn't be talking the way I'm talking now.
No, probably not.
But basically, speaking extemporaneously, the best way to do it is if you're speaking about something you are knowledgeable about. The more you know about the topic at hand, the easier it will be for you to give a speech with less preparation.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, it is very important to prepare.
Well, yeah, to a point.
Yes.
I mean, don't over-prepare. We'll get into that. But in terms of actually giving the speech, if you know about the topic, the more you know, the less you have to prepare. Think of it that way.
For example, if Stephen Hawking was going to give a speech on some sort of astrophysics thing, he already knows. He doesn't have to go and study it or write up a bunch of notes. He just get up there and start talking about it. If you ask me about, to give a speech on, doing a Geeknights podcast or Linux or anything I know a lot about, I can just get up and tell you everything I know about it. Just blah, 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 blah. It comes right out the mouth.
Now, the other thing is, even if you know, say you're the Quiz Bowl master and you memorized all the facts about Greek mythology, that doesn't mean you'll be able to give a good speech on Greek mythology because unless you know the subject intuitively as opposed to knowing the facts of the subject, while you'll be able to give perfectly accurate information, and this seems to be the problem a lot of informative speakers seem to have.
Yeah, you PowerPoint people.
You know all your stuff, you know it well, you have the knowledge, you're imparting the knowledge, but because you don't truly understand the content, you don't emphasize the proper things, and you overemphasize the things that don't matter so much.
Yeah, you're essentially just a talking monotone encyclopedia a lot of the time, which no one wants to hear because they could just read the encyclopedia.
Now, along these lines, a lot of people can't speak extemporaneously for various reasons, and because it is a difficult thing to do, and there are many times when I have not been able to do it, and I've been forced to prepare. When you prepare a speech, very simply, don't write the whole thing unless you plan to memorize it. If you write the entire speech out word for word, and then you try to read it, you will completely fuck up, or you will look terrible.
Or you have a teleprompter and you know how to use it.
Yes,
That's
however,
a rare case.
However, if you have never used a teleprompter, it is not easy.
It is not.
Good God.
You have to spend a lot of time learning how to use one of those freaking things.
Yeah, because you're talking to it, because we had one in one of our classes, and you look away at the audience, and you look back, you lose play track where you are, and you're completely fucked. Yeah,
it's sort of if you're the president talking on TV, that's when it's for. It's not for anything else.
But if you're going to write a speech out, you would better memorize it. Mm-hmm. And by memorize it, I don't mean memorize it. I mean say it often in front of mirrors for weeks before you're giving your speech.
Yeah, when we're talking about preparation, I wasn't talking about, you write down every single word you're going to say. I'm talking about you give the speech over and over again to yourself, to your friends, to anyone else in the house. The more important the speech, the more you want to practice it. And you see what they think of it. And, if they seem impressed, like, or you do it to the mirror and it seems right and you don't sound like an idiot, then, you're doing good. If you can't even give the speech to, your mom, your dad, and your friends sitting in the room, you're in trouble.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Don't think that you'll magically pull one for the team or suddenly bust out amazingly.
No, if anything, you'll suddenly crumple. You know, I mean, there's a chance that even if you did it successfully for your friends and your family, that you'll screw up.
The best happy medium, if you know a topic but you don't know it intuitively, or if you think you're a good enough public speaker to where you'll be able to just blow through it, the best way I've found to prepare is to make little note cards or a sheet of paper that have a basic outline of the order you want to talk about things in and the key points you want to talk about, and then have like a line or a piece of something or a bit or a statistic or all the things you want to remember for sure to say. Like, say you have a really awesome line or a quote you want to use in the middle of a section. Put that down verbatim so you don't forget it, but don't put anything else down verbatim.
So that's what I would do in when I had to write speeches for that class, is I would write a speech, and then I would go through, and for every paragraph, I would delete the entire paragraph from the word processor. But I would write, like, a phrase that, get the idea of the paragraph. So if I wrote a paragraph about, the memory manager, I would just talk about the memory manager, or I'd just write memory manager. And if there was a statistic or a particular piece of information in that paragraph that I had to remember a number, I would put that one with an indent. And I would just do that for every single paragraph. And in the end, I had one measly index card with the topic of each paragraph and maybe a fact for some of those paragraphs. And that's what I would go in with, and I just knew, I'd look down whenever I was stuck, whenever I was about to run out of things to say, I'd look down at the next word and I would transition right into that and just say everything I knew about the next thing.
All right, we've gone a little long. I imagine we'll talk about this many times in the future with more and more details, since there's a lot more we could say.
Yeah,
but I want to give one last piece of advice, because I think this is the most important piece that you can have when you're speaking publicly, and that is, there's the voice coming out of your mouth, and then there's the voice in your head, the voice that's there that when you think to yourself, you hear it in your head.
Mm-hmm.
When you were speaking to a crowd...
Not the voices in your head that are, like, telling you to kill people. Not those ones.
Yeah, or the fire voices. Those are separate.
Those are bad.
Now, when you were speaking to a crowd, you really need to somehow find a way to make the voice that is in your head be perfectly in sync with the voice that is coming out of your mouth. Don't be thinking independently of what you were saying, because then you will forget what you were saying, and if anything disturbs what is coming out of your mouth, you will completely lose track of what you're doing.
Yeah, you'll go, like I do on the podcast all the time.
So instead of thinking, you want your thoughts to be your words. So everything that you were thinking is what you were saying, and you have to concentrate to do this. Now, the concentration will keep you on topic and prevent you from straying. It'll also prevent you from getting distracted in your head, because many times it has happened to me where I'm speaking at a thing where I'm not really prepared at all, like, say it's a Geeknights episode where I didn't really read the news article I'm talking about, and I'm tired, or I'm fiddling with something on my desk, and I'm not actually... I'm fiddling right now.
You are fiddling. I see that fiddle.
Now, at that point, my mind wanders. So I'm thinking, this little figure of Kagali is really cute. I wonder if I can unscrew this thing. But my mouth is still talking. And then suddenly, my mouth, the little buffer in my mouth, runs out of things to say. And my mind is still thinking, da-da-da-da-da. And suddenly I have nothing to say.
Yeah, it generally happens to me when Rim talks for a while, and then I start thinking about something else besides Rim saying, and then it's my turn to say something, and I go, what? Oh, shit. I had to say something.
So I hope there were at least some useful nuggets in that long, rambling, somewhat disorganized talk about talking.
Gee, we did a bad example, and it's supposed to be a good example.
The thing is, while Geeknights is often informative, our primary goals are insightful and more often funny.
I don't know if funny's the goal. I think it's more of a side effect.
Funny's my goal. But then again, the goal of my life is mostly funny.
Okay. My goal of life is to view and hear funny things. Making funny things just sort of happens.
So, if anything, in the forums, ask us questions about public speaking, and I am sure we can give you very detailed pieces of advice.
Yeah.
We will probably do a show with those pieces of advice sometime in the future, and watch for our upcoming episode on how to do a panel at a convention.
Yeah, we'll give the specific panel bits.
And that was Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for our opening theme.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com. If you like our podcasts, you'll love our forums. Make sure you visit them. You can send your email feedback to geeknights@gmail.com. And if you want, you can leave us a voicemail at 206-333-1537.
Geeknights airs every weeknight, Monday through Thursday.
Geeknights is recorded with absolutely no studio and no audience. But unlike those other talk shows, it's actually recorded at night.
I'm reading the wrong quote because I have a quote from my news article as well.
Oh, good job.
I think your bamboo problem was Bacillus pumilus.
Wait, basilisk? As in turns you to stone?
Bacillus, as in a little bacteria.
Oh.
Pumilus.
Not a snake that turns you to...
Bacillus pumilus.
Oh, then maybe it's bacillus instead of basilis.
I've heard things like that said either way. I'm sure Pete and Lisa will correct both of us.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. But she is pretty certain that that is it because it's a small bacteria found commonly in dirt, thrives in water, smells like vomit, and she is 100% confident that it smells like vomit.
That seems to fit the description perfectly. So
yes.
I'd bet money on it.
I will assume that the problem was, in fact, this tiny little bacteria.
Can we get some of this bacteria to use on people?
What do you mean use on people? It'd be easier just to vomit on people.
But it didn't smell. Vomit doesn't smell as bad as bacillus, whatever it is.
I could make you some vomit. We'll get a still. We'll make some concentrated vomit.
Oh no! Oh no!
We'll get a bag of vomit and leave it in the washroom for a week or two.
Okay.
As long as the acid doesn't eat through the bag.
Ew.
Anyway,
let's cut the disgustingness.
Let's get on to the news because we have a pretty good topic today, I think.
All right, so we told you a while ago that some guy broke the fair use for WM thingy, which allows you to take the DRM off of fair play protected music files. So though that includes, music you buy from Napster and Yahoo and some other places that can be played on Microsoft's Windows Media Player, some other players, and any Plays for Sure device. So, of course, Microsoft put out a patch so that fair use for WM doesn't work anymore.
Now, I thought Microsoft only put out patches on Black Tuesday.
They usually do only put out patches on Black Tuesday, which is the second Tuesday of every month. That's the typical thing, is the second Tuesday of every month, Microsoft will put a whole mess of patches out. You go to Windows Update, you'll be all gay. All good. All gay. Yeah, I guess Microsoft.
Okay.
So, I don't know why I said that, but...
I'm really curious.
I don't know either. I guess...
I just know that today I've listened to two radio people say a euphemism for homosexuality instead of their intended word.
It's a virus. It's going around.
Because Penn Jillette, I listened to one of his podcasts.
I know. I heard that too.
And he said the word fag, and then he stopped and he said, I didn't mean to say that word. I meant to say...
Yep. Well, he must have been talking about a cigarette. He's British,
Okay.
Anyway, the point is that Microsoft usually patches everything, including extremely dangerous security vulnerabilities in its software on the second Tuesday of every month.
So if a horrible vulnerability...
So if there's a virus going around the internet destroying everything...
And it comes out on that Wednesday, you've got to wait a whole month.
You got to wait a whole month before you're going to be able to defend against it, unless you have some sort of other company with an antivirus protecting you somehow. So someone broke the DRM on Windows Media files. And within 3 days, which is faster than Microsoft has ever released a patch ever, they put out a patch to fix these holes. Of course, it didn't work for long. Fair Use for WM version 1.2 basically makes the patch useless. And now there's going to be this very long firefight in which, Fair Use for WM upgrades and then Microsoft patches and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I have a feeling Fair Use for WM's going to win. I just had this feeling.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against that.
But the point is, you can tell who's really, controlling things at Microsoft, that they can dedicate resources to, making sure the record companies are happy that they can get a patch out in 3 days. Whereas when there's an extreme security vulnerability and a danger to the entire internet, it's okay. You could wait a month. It's no big deal because, that doesn't really hurt Microsoft's wallet. So
they have money. They had plenty of computers. Like all the textbooks I saw looked brand new, and everything looked really nice.
See, this is what I keep telling people that, just because you grow up somewhere where you have inner city schools doesn't mean you can't learn anything. It's all about how much you try in school.
Well, see, the thing is, I don't know what they were actually teaching, and I saw a small wing of the school, and I'll note that there was another wing of the school that was locked from that side, like from the side I was in to the other side. I don't know if maybe all the troublemakers were in that side.
Yeah, those are the kids who shouldn't be in school in the first place because they don't want to be, and they're not going to learn anything no matter how good the school is.
See, here's the problem with that. I'd say most kids don't want to be in school when they're very young. I didn't want to be in school for much of my schooling.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of kids where, there are kids where if you expel them, they go, yay. And there are other kids who you expel them and they go, no, my life is ruined.
But what's the line? I mean, if you expelled me when I was in first grade, I would have thought that was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I would have spent the rest of my life playing and looking at pictures and books.
Hey, no, you wouldn't. You would have eventually become a homeless bum.
Yeah, and then I would have had the same books to look at because I couldn't buy new picture books. And I'd learn how to read the words night train and fortified wine.
MD 2020.
Anyway, real quick, before we get into the news and everything, I have a short geek back from our good friend and scientist, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say, I want you to know, or wait,
It's Thursday, September 7th, and this is Geeknights. Tonight we discuss how to not suck at talking. Let's do this.
Today at work, I had the privilege of going to one of those places most people only see in the movies. I went to the Bronx Regional High School, which is one of those stereotypical inner-city high schools. And I worked at the clinic there on the computers and more specifically, the closet where the routers and switches go.
What's it like there? I mean, it can't be that bad if they have routers and switches.
Well, here's the thing. It looked exactly like in all those movies about troubled youths in the inner city. The school was really locked down on the outside, bars everywhere. And there were guards at the doors, and everything was everything was really locked down. But every student I ran into, now it was during class I was walking through the halls trying to find the clinic area. And aside from the fact that I walked past one student who was showing off her baby to a number of other students,
mm-hmm.
a high school, mind you.
Yep.
But aside from that, all the punk kids I ran into were typical, bright-looking, normal punk kids, and all the teachers seemed to be teaching normal classes, and it seemed exactly like any other high school I'd been to, even to the fact that they seemed to have plenty